welcome to Crafts and Crime. I'm Amy.
I'm Elaine.
So this week we have a craft and a crime.
Finally.
Yeah, I don't like
someone's actually prepared.
Yeah,
it won't ever be me.
That's okay. So yeah, this week we've been catching up on some stuff, but we have a lot of fun stuff happening around here.
Not busy homestead.
Yeah, we have
inner city homestead.
Seriously. Yeah, we have like caterpillars turning into butterflies. And
I have fresh caterpillars.
Yeah, you just got yours. We both have.
They're painted ladies.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was, and then Elaine knows all the bug stuff because she was like, "Oh, that one's a girl," and I'm like, "How do you know?"
You know, most butterflies and moths are female because their thorax, which is their abdominal area, is round and fat.
Mm-hmm.
And the bottom end is quite round. And in a boy, it's going to be shorter and it's pointy shaped because it's pointy.
Yeah, I had no idea.
So yeah, that's pretty. It's not unlike 100% guaranteed, but it's a pretty good one.
Yeah. So I didn't even look at the others. We had like a few, and I let them go because they came running in. They were like, "We have butterflies in the net."
The one I saw last night on the side of my garage was for sure a boy. So maybe we have a pair at least somewhere hovering around our backyards.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully. And
then the crinkle wing one was the girl.
Yeah, that was.
It didn't make it.
Yeah. Thanks to my kids.
All rough.
I know. That's what happens when you have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old playing with butterflies. But it wasn't going to make it anyway, so it was like
no,
all
it couldn't
deformed.
Fly.
No. And then we have a ton of the praying mantis because, like, we both got, 6 Uthicas, which is like the egg thing. And so it, like, comes with a little bag. With
a little coffee grounds bag.
Yeah,
with a clear window.
Exactly. So you could, like, see in there. And it's weird because it'll be, like, over, I guess, weeks. It could take, like, weeks for them all to come out.
Especially if we had them much earlier in the season. We would have been waiting. We got them at the perfect time because had we got them like January, February, we would have been waiting months.
Exactly.
It's literally the time they're hatching because it's nice and warm.
Oh yeah, it's like so warm here right now. So they're like, "We're coming out," and so yeah, I like woke up in the morning and there was nothing because you check every day, and then I came back like maybe an hour later and there was like 50 of them, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, we need to let them out."
They happen really fast,
and they're so tiny.
When they're crawling on your hands, it's almost like nothing. Like it feels like nothing.
It literally feels like the dandelion weed, like the little puffer thingy, and you blow it. It's like so tiny. Like, yeah. So they don't want to come out of the bag. So you're like, stick your hand in there and they crawl all over and you can't even feel them. They're so tiny. So there's been a lot of bug stuff around here.
My favorite stuff.
Yeah. I was like, that's Elaine's favorite. I'm coming around. I'm okay with like your mealworms and stuff and the beetles. Just don't show me the cockroaches.
Oh, I love them. The mommies are such good mommies.
Oh, I just can't.
They stay with their babies and they keep them warm, and they don't feed them, but the babies will always run right back underneath her, and she lays on them.
It sounds cute.
It's very cute. The babies are so tiny.
Yeah, I know. So that's a lot of bug stuff around here, and then unfortunately we got our fence fixed.
Yep.
Joe came and fixed it. What did you call him again? I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember.
I'm shaking my head.
Oh no. It wasn't his name.
No. His name is Joe, and he reminded me so much of the man that plays Gordon on Sesame Street.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah, and so every time I saw him, I just heard Elmo going, "Mr. Gordon." But he was the nicest dude, and he worked so fast. I mean,
yeah,
it was crazy how fast it was.
And he's got a good singing voice.
Yep. He was super nice and super friendly and really nice about the kids and the dogs and got it done super fast. But now we can't go through anymore.
Yeah.
Neither can the kids. So that's a bit.
Yeah,
it's like we're getting our steps in though.
I know. Now we got to go like around next door to the front door.
Oh, the dang doors.
I know. I'm like, before we just like walk through a hole in the fence. And it's like, hey. Like, I just show up in her garage, like, hey.
Hey. And
you
I'm
hanging
like,
out?
What's up? It's quiet.
Yeah. So now we can't do that. Our fence is fixed, which is good. I mean, it needed to be fixed because my dogs kept going in your yard and my kids. And so, they're annoying. So now it's all fixed and we got to walk around. And I was like, oh no. Now the neighbors know I'm still wearing the same outfit from yesterday. But I was like, but I showered. It's clean. But yeah, so we're getting in our steps. There's, it is what it is. So we we had to go through we had the gate open.
Yeah,
like,
that
around
made
the
it
gate,
easier.
so that made it a little easier when stuff was getting done. But anyway, so moving on to crafts. I actually have a craft, and I'm so excited to talk about it because it's one of my favorite things. It is bread.
Mm-hmm.
When I told Elaine, I'm like, I'm talking about bread. And so I've been making bread for a while.
I'm smiling so much my face hurts.
I know. Me too. I'm like, my cheeks hurt. And now we're going to talk about bread, so I'm going to be really smiling. So anyways, I did some research on bread other than like, I used to, you remember, what was it? The sweet Amish sweet bread. It just has so much sugar in it. But yeah, that's
it's my favorite that you make.
Yeah.
Yes. Because it's bad for you. That's why it's so good.
Of course, all the bad stuff is the best. So anyways, did you know that bread is older than metal? Like forged metal, like metal work?
That doesn't surprise me, but that's very cool.
Yeah. So the oldest bread was made in or around 8,000 BC in Egypt. The climate in Egypt is like really warm, kind of like here. So it's perfect for creating sourdough because obviously you need heat to help, ferment stuff. And the Egyptians were also making beer at this time, and beer and bread both need fermentation. So the use of leavening, which is something in the dough that is used to help make it rise, such as yeast, which now a lot of, people just use yeast. You could just get it at Costco, which I do. And
you keep it in the fridge, right?
I keep
quote unquote, it's alive.
Yeah, I don't know if you need to keep it in the fridge, but I keep mine in the fridge because I feel like it would last longer. And so I have it in a little mason jar, big mason jar. Baking powder is also something used like for leavening. It helps rise. Like think about your muffins, and stuff, and cake. So leavening was discovered and recorded by the Egyptians, and the proof of this was found in ancient paintings depicting bread making. But the oldest loaf, actual physical loaf, found was in Switzerland, and it dated back all the way to 3500 BC.
Everyone loves bread.
I'm telling you, it's like once you find something good, you're like, keep going with it.
Like comfort food throughout the ages.
I know, seriously. So then like through the years, so I'm just going to like go through some history of like different cultures. So like in 600 BC, the Persians invented a windmill to help mill their grains. And I was like a regular a windmill. Yeah. And it would help mill their grains. And as we know, living out in this area, Mexicans made the first stone ground corn tortillas around 100 BC.
Every culture has a flatbread, and I think that's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it is. And that's what a lot of these are, is a lot of them are flatbreads. And others were like sourdough, like loaves of bread. But every culture had their own type of bread. So in 1834, the steel roller mill was invented in Switzerland. And this mill rolled and broke open the grain instead of just crushing it. Like, kind of figure like motor and pestle. Mortar and pestle. Gosh. But yeah, so instead of just like crushing it, it would like roll it open. And so it would separate the different parts of it. It would separate the endosperm, which is the part of the seed that stores like food for the growing plant.
Okay.
And then it also separates the germ and the bran. And by the 20th century, chemicals helped the bread become softer, whiter, and it helped the bread last longer. As we know now, like you can have a loaf of bread and you're like, whoa, this is like months old. Why is it still like that's I'm like, I'm gonna start making my own bread because I'm like, this should not be sitting here for 3 months and not look moldy. So there's a lot of chemicals in our, bread now, which a lot of people know. So before commercial yeast was developed in the 19th century, all bread was sourdough because you had to have something to rise it.
And also probably it helped preserve it too.
So in Germany, sourdough was the way bread was made until brewer's yeast was common in the 14 and 1500s. Once again, a connection to beer. So beer and bread, two of my favorite things. So going way back again, the Romans considered white bread to be higher quality, and the wealthy usually got this bread. And then also in British medieval times, when bread making was in full effect, just like with the Romans, upper class got the white bread, and the lower class got like the darker, coarser breads like rye and bran. Oh, I do love a rye bread. The Cheesecake Factory one. You could like get it at like Staters or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And it's like 2 skinny loaves, and it's got like the oats on the top, and you just pop it in the oven.
Yeah. Oh, is it similar to the one like the Outback has? Like
yes.
that?
Yeah. Like the dark bread. I'm like, I like the dark bread.
I know. And it's healthier for you.
It really is.
They were not constipated.
Yeah, it's not like that Amish
No,
white
bread.
bread.
Oh my God.
So sweet. So much sugar. But bread making has been obviously found throughout history all over the world. So I might get some of these names wrong, like how to pronounce it, but I'm going to try my best.
Okay.
So the Sudanese made kisra. It's Kisra. So kisra, which is fermented dough made with, how do you say this? Sorghum? Sorghum. Okay. And then Ethiopians used wild yeast to make injera. And Mexicans make pool, which is, I'm probably not even saying that right, which is a fermented corn drink.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of fermentation going on. But they would ferment their corn and drink it, I guess. In Ghana and Kenya, they use fermentation from their maize, corn, to make ogi. And in India, they make a breakfast cake called idli. What is that? IDLI? Idli? It almost sounds like I'm saying the Italy, but no, idli, which is made with rice, beans, or chickpeas. And then in Turkey, they make bona, which is a fermented drink, kind of like in Mexico. It's a fermented drink with wheat, maize, sorghum, or millet. Okay. And then in Nigeria, they ferment cassava to make gari or fufu. So a lot of names. Like there's different breads all.
Yeah, I totally know what fufu is.
You do?
I've never had it, but yeah, I've seen videos where it's like so gummy and stretchy, and so you grab it with your fingers and like pinch off a little doughy. It's almost like if they let go of it, it's just gonna sloop out of their hands. So they really.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't look up. Like there was just so many.
It's like a bread liquid pudding. It looks like
that makes sense. Is that what they like grab it and then like grab it with the meat and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I know. Now I know what fufu is, even though it was in my notes. So, okay. So, on to like, how do you make a sourdough? Okay. And I know I've talked to you about sourdoughs, but it's pretty straightforward, but I've never been able to keep mine alive. So, when you start, you add equal parts of flour and water. And then, like, you stir it a couple days, and then you feed it with more flour and water. Then, at some point, you have to, like, discard your starter. And you can use this in recipes like pancakes and crackers, which I've never done. But there's a lot of...
We will do it.
I know. I'm going to do it. I was going to do crackers, but then I was tired.
It's okay.
So, it's a lot. So there is a lot of feeding of the starter. And that's
my pet bread.
Seriously. And that's why I'm like, I can't keep this thing alive. I got to feed it too much. And so there's like some points, if you're starting from scratch, you got to like feed it twice a day. Yeah. I'm like, I barely feed myself twice a day. Like, I got to feed this thing. I got kids to feed and dogs to feed and cats to feed, so. Yeah. So anyways, at some point you're going to get like a doubling in size. And that's like when you're getting the fermentation going. And that's when it's like ready to use. So it's essentially your yeast. It's your sourdough. It's what helps rise your bread. So wheat is more ideal than like just regular flour, I think, because it has more gluten in it. So it'll help rise your starter. And I've noticed when I use like whole wheat, it definitely helps. So this is where the steel roller mill that I was talking about earlier that was invented that rolls it. Because it can help remove the part of the grain that can cause gluten sensitivity. So that's where you get a lot of your like gluten-free flours from. So in my sourdough adventures, I got, as you know, some dehydrated sourdough starter on Etsy. And one was called Black Death and the other was called Frontier. They're both from a shop like on Etsy called Sourdough with like a Z. And like whether or not they're really from that time period, it doesn't like matter to me. I just thought it was like, oh, those sound cool. And like my mom was like, I don't know if I want something called Black Death in my house. I was like, it's fine. But I kept them alive for a little while, and I even used the Frontier to like make like 2 loaves, and it was really good. Although like Troy was insistent that because he smelled the Black Death starter that he got sick from it, and I'm like, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't have disease in it. So anyways, the time went on, and as you know, I'm trying to keep my kids, my animals, my plants, myself alive, trying to feed myself more than twice a day, and I killed my starters. And I know they're alive, and I was looking into it, and I probably could have saved the one that had the mold on it, but it scares me.
I wouldn't have even risked it. I get it. It sucks. But,
yeah, so I'm
like mold is for real. It makes you so sick.
I know.
Most people know.
I know. And then I'm like, is that supposed to look like that? I don't know. So I was just like, well, I don't think it's for me. I can't.
To give an example of what it looked like, it was like a fluffy, white, wrinkly beard.
Yes.
Right on the top, like a little wrinkly skin beard.
It was scary looking. And I was like, I don't.
Yeah.
Just wrinkly
skin beard.
Yeah. I think a beard grows on your skin. Or out of your skin.
I think I meant to say wrinkly skin.
Oh. Skin beard. But yeah, it was creepy looking. I was like, I don't want. I give up. Like, I can't keep it alive.
Yeah.
So I dumped him. And yeah, but going back to when sourdough was in the hands of capable people and they could actually keep alive, a lot was actually carried all across the United States. So explorers, this is like, way back in the 1800s. So explorers in the United States were called sourdoughers because they would keep the mother leavening, which is like your sourdough starter, like on them, like on their body, so it wouldn't freeze.
Oh.
And I'm sure it helped because the body heat, it would help like, a
constant, steady body temperature.
And so because of this practice, them carrying it across, the whole country, San Francisco is mostly sourdough bread. And, the Boudin Bakery is still using the original starter that they've been producing it since like 1849. And it's the same thing. It's like when you go to Disneyland and they do like the whole tour thing, and it's like the original starter, like they have it. So like you can share the original starter, keep it alive. Like don't ask me to do it, but like you could keep a sourdough alive for like centuries, I guess. So I have a couple fun facts.
Ooh, okay. I love trivia.
Just a couple.
Okay.
So the Great Fire of London in 1666 was reportedly started by a baker.
Oh.
So, baking those loaves.
Rude.
I know. And then in medieval times, thick slices of bread were used instead of plates or bowls.
Genius.
So kind of like the bowl, the soup bowl, like at Disneyland. They like, the broccoli cheddar in the bread bowl. I actually watched the Fantasmic show eating a broccoli cheddar soup in a bread bowl.
Totally. Oh my God.
So
I did as a kid too.
Yeah. And then you eat the bowl. Then you're so carb full. Like it's
for sure.
It's a lot. But so I'm really determined to get the sourdough thing down. So, as you know, I recently it's called Carl Griffith's 1847 Oregon Trail Sourdough Starter. That's the full name.
Amazing.
So, here's a little bit about Carl Griffith. He would give a starter to anyone who asked or anyone who sent him a self-addressed stamped envelope. And that's what I did. You can find like you just Google it and you can find the address and stuff on, where to send it.
So anybody can do this?
Yes, anybody can do this. And they send you a little dehydrated like baggie, and the instructions are online and you just follow the instructions. So I was able to like get it going, and it started working. So
yay.
Carl was born in Burns, Oregon on September 4th, 1919, and he was an only child. He graduated from the University of Oregon School of Business Administration in 1947 and then the School of Law in 1950. He then practiced law and served in the Air Corps in England during World War II and then retired in 1970 as lieutenant colonel. He died on March 23rd, 2000 in Sequim, Washington. And so his starter came from the Oregon Trail.
I love it.
So that's why it's called the Oregon Trail, sourdough starter. So for those who may not know, in the mid-1800s, the Oregon Trail was the main route for settlers, farmers, lumbermen, and prospectors. Hello, gold rush, We live in California, so there's a lot of Oregon Trail and Gold Rush history that we obviously learn in school, and basically any museum.
I grew up in Oregon. I went to very many Oregon Trail museums as our field trips.
Yeah.
And forts. So,
I bet.
Yep.
So
it's interesting.
It is.
It's very interesting.
It really is.
If you can understand the luxury of our life, it's intense.
I know. And if you've ever played Oregon Trail as a kid on that little green, little old computer, green screen.
Yeah. You died of dysentery.
Exactly. Oh, that was a highlight of the day. It's
those
like
radiation
computers. Yes, it's like computer lab time, and you go and you play.
Yeah, now you understand why they only let you do it for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
They knew we were getting blasted with radiation.
Yeah, but, we're not dying of radiation. We're dying of dysentery.
Dysentery.
So, yeah, like the Natural History Museum, they have like a huge thing in there, like gems and stones and stuff. There's a whole section on like the Gold Rush, you know, and stuff. So anyways, the trail started in Missouri, and then it went northwest for about 2,000 miles to Oregon, into the Oregon Territory. And then some went to Santa Fe, New Mexico. Others went to California. And obviously California was for the Gold Rush. That's where a lot of people came for that. So one of Carl's relatives traveled the Oregon Trail by wagon train in 1847 and brought the starter with them. I'm sure they probably put it on their body so it didn't freeze. And it's been kept alive by his family, him, and now multiple volunteers who continue to keep it alive and share it even after his death. So,
I love that.
Yeah, he's been gone since 2000, but people are still sharing that original starter. And this is the only starter I've been able to keep alive. I have not baked with it yet. It's in my fridge. It's not dead. Maybe I'll bake with it this weekend, but it's a little scary. So if you don't want to use sourdough, which like I've baked bread, but I can't do sourdough for some reason. So instead of using sourdough starter, you can use commercial yeast. Like I was saying, I have in my fridge. I have a bread maker that I just like toss all the ingredients and turn on, and it like does everything, which is nice. So I do like sandwich loaves and stuff. I think you've had, right? Yeah, I did.
It's very good.
And
but because it is preservative free, it's pretty much dried out and done by the next day, even if you don't put it in a bag. And I think that's what people don't realize. Like loaves come out of the machine kind of small because it needs to be eaten that day.
Yeah, you need to eat it like right away.
Yeah.
And even when I made it for my brother, he's like, man, it went moldy really fast. I'm like, yeah, because there's no preservatives
in it. It's so fresh.
It's
and
like
it's so moist and fluffy and beautiful.
Yeah. It is good. And I made banana bread in there, and that's a little, like, sometimes it's too moist, and other times it's, like, too dry.
I love it if it's all fudgy, as long as I know. It just has to get hot for a little while so that the flour doesn't make you sick. That's it.
So I'm going to share my favorite recipe that I make, and it's, like, Jack's favorite. It's everybody's favorite. It's from a cookbook called The New Artisan Bread in 5 Minutes a Day. So I originally got it from the library, and then I bought it because I liked it. And so they have the master recipe, which is like an artisan free form loaf. And so I have a big 6-quart container, and all you do is you just mix all the ingredients together. So the recipe is, for those of you who might want to write it down, it's 3 cups lukewarm water, 1 tablespoon yeast, 1 to 1.5 tablespoons of kosher salt, and then 6.5 cups flour. That's it. And then you just mix it all in, and you just cover it and let it rise for a couple hours. And then you you take the dough out, like with floured hands. You put it on like, I usually use like a cutting board and form it. Yeah. And then you just let it sit for like 40 minutes or so. And then you preheat your oven. Like you put your skillets. You could do like a, what's it called? A pizza stone. Or I just use cast iron pans. And you preheat them like in the oven. So it's like hot.
Yeah.
And then when you take them out, like when it's all ready, you like flour the top of your dough, your bread. And you score it. Like I have the little like blade thingy.
Blade tool.
Yeah. And you just like do a couple deep
it's a
like
bread
things.
Scalpel.
Yeah, whatever it's called.
I don't know what it's called.
Oh, I don't know what it's called either. And here I'm talking about bread. But yeah, you just like make your cuts in it. And then you could use like, you can use parchment paper, but you have to take it out from like under the bread at the last 10 minutes. So I just sprinkle like cornmeal on it, and then you just like pop the loaves in and you bake it for like 30 to 35 minutes, and then take it out, put it on a cooling rack. And you should put like steam. Like I have a loaf pan that I put like water in to kind of steam it to add like moisture. And it's the easiest thing. It's literally like mix it, leave it, form it, leave it, preheat it, and then toss it in.
I totally just had one of those loaves you made me, I think like 2 weeks ago. It's so good.
And that's, because I
so
brought it over.
in the middle and so crunchy on the outside.
Yes, it's so good. Oh, with like fresh butter on it. But
and it's like rustic. That's like
it is.
the way they've done it.
Yeah. And so that's, when I brought it over, that's when it was raining and we watched that storm come through and then we saw a double rainbow. Yeah. It was fun. And then we ate bread and we're all happy.
Yes. And now it's 90 degrees today.
I know. It's so hot. It's really hot. We have like a heat wave coming through.
And it's not even May.
I know.
And our trees are slacking.
I know. See, if we had them all full, it would at least give some shade.
It really would.
Yeah, so that's why I was like, maybe I'll bake some bread today. And I'm like, I don't want to turn on my oven. It's very hot.
It's really hot.
So, anyways, but
I loved it.
That's my bread stuff. Yeah.
Oh,
I learned some stuff even researching. I was like, oh, cool.
I have never, and I bake a lot. Not now. I used to. I have baked a lot. There we go. But I have never baked bread. Never.
I will teach you.
And I, like, the closest... No, I thought of it for a second.
You helped me with the bread maker once.
Oh my God, that does... Okay, come on now.
But you did.
Okay.
Hey, I consider that making bread. You gotta measure ingredients, put it in, and put it on the right setting.
Okay, I forget things.
Oh, I forgot a whole loaf of bread in there for 5 days.
Oh, no.
And then I opened it up and I was like, because I was going to make bread. Because I was like, man, I'm out of bread. And then I opened it up and I'm like, oh no. I forgot.
Was it like rock solid?
Yes, it was so hard.
Could you even get it off the little pin thing?
Yeah, I had to like flip it and then like the underside was all soft. So we just kind of like poked our hands in and like got the soft center. And
clawed it out.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. And then I was like, oh, we should probably throw it away. It's been in there for 5 days. I know. So, anyways, yep.
I loved it.
Now I want bread.
Yeah.
I want bread and beer.
It's Friday here today. We are recording and it is April 21st. And that is going to tie into my story today, which is completely by coincidence.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
I am so ready.
Okay.
I've been ready.
I'm going to preface it by saying that this is pretty gross. I mean, of course, crimes can be gross, but this is pretty disturbing. And so if you really don't like super graphic things, or maybe it's not the time for this one. So today, my case hits close to home because I grew up in Oregon, and this is where this is all going to go to. Today I'm talking about Jerome Brudos, and he's also called the Foot Fetish Slayer.
Ew. Okay, now I know why you're saying it's gross.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know this case.
Okay, so good old Jerry was born January 31st, 1939 in Webster, South Dakota. I bet it was freezing. Oh, my God. It must have been so snowy. His mom's named Eileen. She's just a homemaker. His dad was a farmer. His dad was possibly an alcoholic, but that's kind of disputed. He had an older brother. He was 3 years old. His name was Larry. Mom did not want any more kids. She was already middle-aged. She was done. But, times as they were, she was going to take it. And then it was a boy. She wanted a girl. It didn't matter they lived on a farm. She wanted the girl.
Yeah. You would think because you put the boys to work.
Yeah,
like, I could try to work all the time.
Yeah, but she wanted a girl. And this is exactly what people thought. Well, for whatever reason, she decided to take this out on little Jerry. She abused him, belittled him, would make him dress up like a little girl because she wanted a little girl. And so they say that studies have shown that boys who have really unhealthy bonds with their moms in later life can tend to show aggression and hostility. It's kind of just, it's hard. So, in 1944, his family lives in Portland, Oregon, but just for a little while. He's 5 and he's walking around playing like they used to let kids play. He's in a junkyard. He's 5, right?
Oh my gosh.
Let him
never let Lincoln do that.
But I think the lack of care from his mother had something to do with that.
Yeah.
He finds a pair of high heels.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like, oh, look at these. These are totally fun. It's completely innocent. He's a child. He's playing in shoes. Probably maybe his mom has some. He takes them home. He walks home. He's playing with them. his mom finally finds them, and she beats the living hell out of him with these shoes, calls him horrible names that I can only imagine, and then she burns them in front of him. Okay. And so it immediately makes shoes like dirty and naughty and gross and taboo for him. And now he is like really wanting shoes. He's only 5. So he's still a child. Something weird here is happening very early.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of like Lincoln, you know, he's 5, and I'm just like, oh, he walks around with daddy's shoes on all the time.
Totally.
And I'm just like, but I would never, wow.
Yeah, and he's still just little. It's crazy.
So wait, so she would dress him up like a little girl, but not let him walk around in girls' shoes?
Harass him. I think she would torture him with, I'm gonna
okay.
make you. Or she would do it like as a threat to make him embarrassed.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, they've moved again. They move a lot because they're farmers. They got to move where the best place would be. They are living in Riverton, California. He's in 1st grade. His teacher, she has 2 pairs of shoes behind her desk. You know, your feet hurt. You want to swap them out, whatever. And he decides he's going to steal them. Oh, gosh. Now, he's still only 6 years old. And there's not a lot of information, but pretty much sounds like he snuck them, tucked them in his desk, and a classmate saw and told the teacher. So the teacher drags him to the front of class and makes him tell everyone what he did. So she
not only his mom doing this, but his teacher
now his teacher, you know. And it sucks because it's only 1945. There's nobody, children, be quiet, you know. So he's embarrassed. He's mortified, of course, and he leaves the classroom. And of course, his mom finds out, and he's beaten again at home. It's a continuating thing. This is pretty much all that happens at that point. He gets to 2nd grade, and he fails 2nd grade. He's a really chronically ill kid at this point. He has like laryngitis. He has measles. He has like swollen glands all the time.
And this was in like the 30s, right?
At this point, it's about 1946.
Oh, okay.
But still, there wasn't a lot. I don't even think penicillin was invented yet, which is crazy to think about that.
Yeah.
And he also used to miss a lot of school because he used to have surgeries to get fungal infections taken care of. There's no information on what that exactly means, but I'm guessing like trench foot kind of, maybe. I have no idea. It doesn't say, and that's kind of a bummer. But then he starts developing really horrific headaches. A 6-year-old, like migraines. And he says that he can't see. They're causing him to lose his vision. So they send him to the ophthalmologist. And they do the tests and everything, and there's literally nothing wrong. So they give him what they call a thin prescription, like placebo glasses, hoping maybe it'll give him the confidence to be able to see better.
I have glasses. I could see now.
Exactly. It doesn't help at all. His grades don't get better. Nothing changes. They kept moving around Southern Oregon, and they settle a little bit when he is 12. And he starts going to his neighbor's house because he plays with the little boys next door. But that boy has an older sister.
I knew it.
And so he starts playing with her shoes.
Oh, gosh.
And then he finds her bras and her underwear. And he's like, okay, I totally love these. But he leaves them there. He doesn't steal anything, probably because, he knows the person. And then when he gets just a smidgen older, he's like 13 or so. His older brother, who's 16, has a little box of dirty business, Jerry picks the lock, busts it open, has the material, and his mom catches him. And now this woman is like, it was the times, but this woman is next level, like sex is the devil. You just, so he gets the crap beat out of him, but he loves his brother. He takes the fall. It's his stuff, and he now is starting to go through puberty as boys do. And she continues to humiliate him by beating the shit out of him every time he has a nocturnal emission. And then she makes him wash his sheets by hand outside.
Oh my gosh!
So like that's women's work, and now he's washing his semen out of the. He's only 13, 14.
Yeah,
it's really sad.
So
and
it's
gross.
like not just like here, just let me toss it in the wash or
right,
but
or even wash them yourselves. Like, so it was really terrible. So he hates her, and it sucks. And he's getting older. They move again. They move to Corvallis, Oregon, And he's 16 years old now, so that makes his brother Larry about 19. They move there so that he can go to OSU. Go Beavers. So, because he's studying electronics.
Oh, okay.
Now, Jerry starts stealing bras and underwears off of clotheslines of people.
Oh, just hanging up their wash.
Yep, hanging up their wash. And some of these are like close by neighbors. Some of them are all the way down the street, a couple blocks over. So everybody knows there is someone stealing bras and underwear. But the problem is that nobody knows who's doing it. It's not like people have cameras, no ring doorbells. So he keeps stealing stuff, but he's using them for masturbation.
Ew.
Yeah, so he's using these for sexual reasons because there's still something he's been attached to for several years now. And there's a girl that he likes quite a lot later in that summer. And he decides he likes her underwear. He's stealing her underwear. And he's coming up with a plan now to get her naked so he can take pictures of her. What? And so he tells her, hey, I totally know I can help you get your stuff back. Come over to my house. And so he stole. Exactly, right?
Like,
so she's
I know how to
like,
get it
okay,
back.
he's gonna help me. So she comes over to the house, and she shows up, and she's like dragged into the house by a man wearing a mask and then has a knife, and he threatens to kill her if she doesn't take off her clothes. And so she is forcibly, made to get undressed, and then the man just takes pictures of her and then leaves, runs out the front door. And so she takes her moment and she gets dressed and she quickly leaves. And as she's leaving, Jerome is at the door and he says, oh my God, I totally saw the guy. He went that way. I was in the bar and I saw everything. What kind of sense does that make? You're not going to rush in and help this girl.
Like right as it happens?
For sure.
I'm sure it wasn't like a 2-second encounter.
Exactly. It took some time for this to happen. And she does totally see through his bullshit. And she tells the police, but there's no evidence. There's, there's nobody knows. Nobody saw anything. They can't put him to it. So that's all that happens with that. Nothing happens between this and the next year. It's not even a full year later. So he's 17 now. And he convinces a girl to get in the car, like, let's go. And he drives her to an abandoned farmhouse where he completely just starts wailing on her to the point that when a couple is driving by, they can see and hear what's going on. And they go in and he does the same thing as before. I totally saw what happened. No, I didn't do anything. I was trying to help her, Nobody falls for that.
Yeah.
And because of what they think they're able to go to his house to get a search warrant. And they now find all the stolen underwear, the shoes, and pictures of the girl that he took. Because, of course, he kept it. It's only been a year. So he's found guilty, and he's sentenced to Oregon State Hospital, which is in Salem, Oregon. And it's super close to downtown.
So, like, he's just mental. He needs help?
Yeah, because he's only 17.
Oh, true. Yeah.
So, and so he's sent there. And on April 16th, 1956, while he's there, he is diagnosed with adjustment reaction of adolescent with sexual deviation, fetishism, and schizophrenic tendencies. Schizophrenia was always used as something back then.
I was like, that's kind of the blanket term for a lot of mental illnesses at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it is pretty much he's not adjusting to puberty and hormones, and it's turning him into a violent pervert, which is like, okay. At the time when he was there, he used to talk to doctors about his fantasy of chopping up women and posing them in whatever way he found sexually gratifying in his freezer.
Ew.
But, he talked through it and they were talking about it. That's what they find to be important is he was sharing.
Okay.
This is so crazy to me. He's allowed to finish high school while he's in the hospital. They let him leave. He goes to North Salem High School in Dallas, Oregon. They let him leave and come back after school. Right. He's a violent offender.
Yeah.
And they let him leave. Nothing happens, thank goodness, but I still find that so crazy. He's there for 8.5 months. That's a pretty decent amount of time. And they say he's fine. He's better. He's 18 years old now. They release him. And he goes back to high school in Corvallis, where his family lives.
Okay.
And he graduates pretty much at the bottom of his class at like 142 out of 202 students.
Oh, wow. So, like, very bottom.
Yeah, exactly. And
well, he doesn't sound very smart considering the excuses he comes up
right,
with.
exactly.
I saw the whole
I
thing.
saw the whole thing. Right after high school, between the ages of 18 and 20, he tried out a bunch of different vocations, vocational school, tried some college at OSU, but he couldn't focus between his fantasies and just his mental health in general, and so he would quit all those things. He joined the Army. He figured, well, I can get away from home, get away from my mom, get away from my troubles and my past. And so he leaves, and he ends up doing basic in Fort Gordon in Georgia and comes back here, and he's stationed. He's still really troubled, super unfocused, and he's really struggling. And on October 15th, 1959, he talks to the Army chaplain. If anybody doesn't know what that is, it's like a priest, you know.
Oh, okay.
Like a pastor.
I didn't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's like a pastor, a priest, but it's a non-denominational kind of thing.
Okay.
And I believe they also have like counseling degrees. And so he refers him to Army psychiatrist Captain Theodore Barry. He talks to Dr. Barry about the fantasies that he's going through, which actually at this time isn't super crazy. He just has this fantasy of a Korean woman. And it was really nondescript.
So it's not chopping up bodies
not yet,
anymore?
no. But whatever he said, good old Dr. Teddy immediately the same day medically discharged him. And on his record, it stated for just bizarre obsessions. So that kind of discharge, it's not good, it's not bad, it just is. It's whatever.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look bad. There's nothing on his record that doesn't really make it look bad.
Uh-huh.
Later in that fall, he moves home because he's done. His mom is obviously mortified. She's already ashamed. She hates him already. She makes him live in a shed.
What?
Yeah. So he's only 20. He's about 20 now.
Okay.
And so he's living in the shed and he's miserable. And she keeps him there. And for like a year, he's 21. Sees this lady walking down the street. Sorry. And he likes her shoes. That's what he sees.
Of course.
He likes her shoes.
Of course.
And so he follows her home, strangles her till she passes out just to steal her shoes.
What?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And he runs home and he cuddles them to sleep in his shed.
What?
Yeah.
Just
yeah,
for
choked
shoes?
her out just for her shoes. Yep.
Psycho.
Exactly. Yeah.
Could you imagine then knowing like all he wanted was my shoes?
And you're lucky you're alive.
Yeah.
You never
like, I almost
know.
died
Anyone
over pretty shoes.
I got choked out for my shoes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and he keeps these shoes for a while, as long as he can, and he cuddles with them. And the very same year, he's 21, he gets his FCC license. I looked this up. You have to have an FCC license to work in a radio station, anybody, because it's like federal airwaves. So you have to know what you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah. So he gets that license and he gets a job at a radio station. I could not find what it is. If anyone finds it, let us know. I really couldn't. And he meets 17-year-old Darcy Metzler.
Okay.
And they start dating.
He's what, 20?
21.
21?
21.
Okay,
She's
so not that-
17.
Okay.
She's already she's a spinster at this point.
Oh, I know.
Just kidding. And her parents hate him. They don't really know why they hate him, but they just hate him. They don't like him.
Just
so
gives off a
what
bad
do you
vibe.
think she did? She falls in
runs
love
away?
and they get married in 3 months.
Did she run away?
No,
with him?
but she still married him.
Oh, wow.
And in their honeymoon period, he forces Darcy to cook and clean naked, wearing the high heels and only high heels. It doesn't specify if they're from that girl or some other person that they stole, but probably.
Probably like.
And she thinks this is like, she doesn't love it. She feels very pushed into it, but she does it because she loves him and like, oh, we're just young. They're young.
Young and married. You know,
exactly.
freshly married.
But he takes pictures of her all over the house constantly. She doesn't love it and she just puts up with it.
Yeah.
It's now 1962. He's 23 and he is now a dad. He has a daughter and her name is Megan. And they're moving all up and down the West Coast because he can't keep a job.
Yeah.
Because he sucks.
Yeah. Like he's a psycho.
He can't stay focused and he cannot keep a job no matter what happens. And then they move again. They're moving around for like 3 years. It's 65 and he gets a job at Salem Electronics. And of course he quits. And they freaking move again. They finally settle down for a little bit in Portland. He has a job as an electrician. But now these migraines come back.
I forgot
And
about this.
yeah, and they come back, but now he's saying like they're so excruciatingly painful that they're causing him to black out. He would go on what I'm like, they're panty raids. They're gross panty raids. He breaks into houses, nobody's home, and he just steals their underthings and then leaves. And he does it all the time to help. Like, it's we kind of become, it's a compulsion. It's like an obsessive
obsession.
Compulsive thing because he has to do it to stop his feelings, stealing panties and stuff. He started to completely cross-dress now in private. Bra, wigs, dress, whole thing. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but this is what he is now doing. And in public, he's wearing bras and panties under his clothes. Little lady stuff.
Okay.
At 28, Darcy's pregnant again, but she is so sick of his shit. She does not let him in the birthing room. They pretty much don't even speak anymore.
Oh, really?
And so he's really, really upset by this because he loves them, and he loves them. And so he's really upset by this. And this stress leads him to doing more and more of these like panty stealing. He says that after the birth of his son, he started stalking a woman downtown, and he loved her shoes, and he broke into her house when she was asleep, and he strangles her, and he sexually assaults her, and then steals her shoe. So this is the first time that he says he did this.
Taking it to another level. Oh, no.
So at this time in the area, women are starting to go missing. January 26, 1968, 19-year-old Linda Slauson is selling encyclopedias door to door. And I do not even think she was from the area, and she's missing. July 1968, Stephanie Vico goes missing in Portland, Oregon. We're just moving on. Months are happening. Nothing's happening. He's still doing these panty raids, and his wife, they don't even speak. Like, they literally don't talk. He spends his entire time living in their basement garage, and she's not allowed to go down there. And she hates him so much at this point.
She's like, good,
nope,
fine.
whatever. Keep away from me. And if she needs to speak to him, there's an intercom.
What?
The door's locked, and there's an intercom. She has to buzz the bell.
Right. No.
So, I know. November 26, 1968, 23-year-old U of O student Jan Whitney goes missing after driving home from Thanksgiving, and her car is found locked and abandoned at a rest stop. March 27th or 28th, 18-year-old OSU student Karen Sprinker is going shopping downtown at the Salem Center Mall, and she goes missing, and they find her car, same thing, locked and abandoned in the parking garage. During the investigation, trying to look for her and, gathering her car, two teenagers recall to the police seeing a large man dressed in women's clothing, just lurking around the roof area. I totally know where that is because as a teenager, I used to sit on the top and dangle my legs off the side.
Oh my gosh.
Because, you don't care. You're being dumb.
Yeah, I could never.
Okay, here's where this is super weird. On the day of recording, it is April 21st.
Okay.
April 21st, 1969, 24-year-old Sharon Wood is attacked by a man who beats her unconscious, but a car drives by, like right as it's happening. He freaks out, and she lives. Okay. She tells police that she bit him on the thumb until it was bleeding. So she got them.
Good.
But then she was beaten, and so she has no description.
Remember,
So, and at this point, there's no connection made in these disappearances. They're 1 month apart, and then before they were about 4 months apart. Nobody is connecting anything. They're college kids. They dropped out of school, maybe. You can't, you never know.
They're all young women.
They went hitchhiking. Who knows? People did that all the time back then. The very next day, April 22nd, 15-year-old Leanne Brumley is walking downtown Salem near Parish Middle School. I totally can see exactly where that is in my head. And a man drives up in a green Volkswagen Carmen Ghia, which is a pretty cool car at the time.
Okay.
And he tries to pull her into the car, and she flails and screams, and a neighbor hears this and comes outside, and he takes off. So her family, they do, they tell as much as they can to the police. This is reported, but again, just a creep. It's whatever. And so they take the information that they can, but that's all. And April 23rd, Linda Saley disappears while shopping at the Salem Center Mall. that mall's popping. And she went to go buy a present for her boyfriend. So people know it's not going to be a long thing. Her car, just like Karen's, is found abandoned in the parking structure. And the vehicles are always locked.
Yeah.
So it's
like they never made it to their car.
Yeah. And police are now considering that maybe there is something going on. This is connected. Do we have a serial killer? May 10th, this is still, 1969. May 10th, a man is fishing on the Long Tom River, and he sees something floating really close to
I was just going to
shoreline.
ask, when do the bodies start showing up? Because all these women are missing, and oh no.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he gets closer to it, and he sees that it's a naked woman. He immediately leaves, and no cell phones, has to drive to a gas station to use a payphone to tell police what he found. The police remove the body, and they see that it's tied up using really interesting knots with nylon rope and copper wire. And she's weighted down to a car transmission.
Oh, wow.
And the body is identified as Linda Saley. Police immediately are worried, and they send dive teams and boats to start dredging
the area.
to start dredging the area. They find another body, like almost immediately, only 50 feet away from where Linda's body was found. But this one's completely submerged. The body's tied exactly the same way.
With the copper wire and everything?
The copper wire, the nylon, and this time it's tied to a car engine.
Oh my gosh, those are heavy.
I know, right? And that's what they're wondering, like, oh my God, how does somebody do this?
Exactly.
Cars were kind of small back then. So when they completely remove this body from the water, they find both of her breasts are cut off, and the open wounded area is stuffed with brown paper towels, and there's a bra on over it.
What?
Yeah. And they identify this body as the missing Karen Sprinker. Police are starting to see a pattern of these young college girls, and they start staking out places where girls would hang out, colleges, the mall, coffee shops. They're interviewing a girl at OSU, Oregon State University, and the police are now being told by several different women there's a weirdo calling the dorms, saying he's a lonely Vietnam veteran trying to get a date. My dad was actually in Vietnam when this was happening. So that's really crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So this is what he's saying. And so this girl, she accepts.
What?
She accepts. And so she's telling the police, I went on this date with him, and he's immediately really weird. He's talking about the dead girls they're finding in the river, like too
on your
excitedly
first date,
on your blind date. What? And then he talks about how he would like to strangle her, maybe.
Oh, I'm out. I'd be
so
no.
She tells the police this, and she gives them the description of Jerome Brudos. So Jerry keeps trying to call her. It's around May 25th, 26th, and he keeps calling. He keeps calling. She tells the police, this guy's calling me. They say, set it up.
Oh.
And
so using her as like bait to get him.
So, yep, she accepts the date. And when Jerome shows up at the residence hall, which I'm guessing is like the lobby of your dorm, there's cops. And so, they just want to talk. They just want to chit chat a little bit. And they believe what he has to say. He's a married man. He's an electrician now. He's doing all these things. He's good. So
a married man just trying to hook up with the college kid.
I know, right? So he ends up tipping, like, they have a gross feeling, and so they check his background. They check his background and see his violent crimes, because back then, your record wasn't expunged as a child. It is now, but it wasn't back then. And so they are really interested. So they're able to go to his house. They're just to talk again.
Oh, in his basement.
And he lets them in.
Is he thinking that they're just?
I guess so. Want to talk about her? They don't know. He doesn't, because he's so arrogant.
Yeah, I was like, he's probably got it in his head, like, I've gotten away with it for all these years,
exactly.
all
this
not
time.
Gonna,
So because he doesn't interfere, they're just walking around the house and they see some weird stuff. He is got some nylon rope, some copper electrical wire from his electrician job, and there's a lot of pictures of women in these underwear.
Oh my
and
gosh!
Some of them maybe don't look alive.
Oh my gosh!
But she could be sleeping, right?
Yeah.
So the problem is, they're going to start building a case. It's not illegal to have rope and wire and pictures of half-naked ladies.
Unless they're the dead women.
They have a feeling. They contact the family of Leanne Blumley, the girl that was almost kidnapped.
Okay.
And they give her a lineup of photographs. Pick out the man. And she positively identifies Jerome Brudos as the man who tried to kidnap her. So now Oregon State Police have obtained a warrant for his arrest for the attempted abduction, because it's what they can start with. It's what they legally can start with.
Okay.
He tries to run.
Of course
he doesn't go far. They catch him, and while he's in jail, they haven't even started anything. They're kind of interviewing, trying to see, did you try to abduct this girl?
Mm-hmm.
He's calling his wife Darcy, trying to get her to burn clothing, to burn items in the house, and she tells the police
to hide evidence.
And she says, "Hell no, don't call me again."
Yeah,
and she tells the police that they're trying.
I was just so afraid when you were talking about the pictures. I thought you were going to say that they were going to ask like the victims, like the missing girls, like, is this your daughter or whatever? Oh,
that would be terrible.
I'm like, but yeah, all the pieces are starting to fall into place now. That. Oh, and now he's trying to get rid of evidence.
Now he's trying to get rid of evidence. So they're trying to hurry. They don't know. Does Jerry have friends that might do this for him?
Oh, yeah.
Because, of course, the neighbors loved him. He was such a good guy. Quiet, kept himself. During their executed search warrant, police are now in his basement workshop.
Oh.
They find tons more photos. Severed limbs of photos of limbs. And
so he carried out his fantasy
of him posing with dead women.
Oh my
missing
God.
feet, dressed up like dolls in bras and underwear. And there's a picture of just a severed foot wearing a high heel. They find paperweights molded from breasts.
Oh my gosh. So
they find the copper wire and the rope have the exact same tool markings.
Of course they do.
As the tool that is also currently in his basement.
Oh, yeah. Of course it is.
Those intricate knots used to tie up the victims, those are not specific to Jerome's job as an electrician.
Oh.
And this is what helps seal the deal.
I was going to say, is it like military or like, okay, so electrician.
So now with this irrefutable evidence, he confesses. So now we're going to detail these murders.
Okay.
Linda Slauson is selling encyclopedias door to door, and she does have samples of a few books. People want to see the book boards and the pages. They want to feel it. They're heavy. He says, "Why don't you come in my house? You can set those down. I'm totally going to buy a set for you. My children could use them for school."
Oh, wow.
She goes downstairs, and he beats her over the head with a 2x4. He strangles her to death, and he plays dress up with her body, and he cuts off the foot, puts his favorite high heel from his collection, and he uses it for masturbation.
Oh my gosh.
He puts it in the freezer, and he keeps her body for a day or two. He doesn't really specify that. And then he puts it in his trunk, and he takes the foot as well because the foot started to rot.
Yeah.
So all he has now is a picture. And he dumps her body in the river.
Okay.
And her body has never been found.
Oh, no.
And unfortunately, just a picture of a foot doesn't equal a dead person.
Exactly.
So, Jan Whitney, her car broke down driving home from Thanksgiving. She's on the I-5 freeway between Salem and Albany, which is crazy because I know where that is.
Exactly.
And her car started to break down, and she managed to make it into a rest stop is what they're thinking, because that's where her car is found abandoned. Starts sputtering, you drive off.
Yeah.
He drives up with his truck. He says, "Hey, I'll totally help you out. Get in the truck, and we'll take you to a payphone or my house, and we'll help you get a tow truck." The moment she gets in his car, he strangles her with a leather strap, and he assaults her corpse. in his truck.
Oh my God.
Then he takes her home and he keeps her body hoisted from a pulley in the garage, hanging up from her neck, and he continues to use her body for days.
Oh my gosh.
He cut off her breast and he made a mold of it and cast it in resin. So this like a breast mold on his table, just had left it there.
What?
And then he tied her body to a railroad iron and he threw her in the river. Okay. Karen Sprinker. Dressed in full women's clothing, he held her at gunpoint, took her home. He raped her while she was alive, and then forced her to play dress up. And there's pictures of that. That he took. Because he was proud of his pictures. He thought he was like an artist. So then he hangs her from the neck from the pulley, and he strangles her to death that way. And he continues to assault her corpse for days. So but this time he cuts off both of her breasts. He's stuffed them with brown paper towels, put his favorite bra from his collection onto her, and he did what he wanted for several days.
Oh, okay.
Right after this murder, he's telling the cops the family was out of the house and a drunk driver had crashed into their home and garage, busted it wide open. The cops show up. If they had just looked in, the insanity they would have seen. On top of this fact, it's been days. And there was a smell coming from the yard. And if they had just investigated a little bit, they would have found her.
Isn't that so awful how they were often just that away. Happens?
Yep. And he told them just nonchalantly after talking about this, he's like, oh, it was real close.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, my God.
And that made him feel... Can you imagine?
They're not going to
get away with anything.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, that's kind of like, it reminds me of JC Dugard, where she was just right there. If they would have just looked a little further, they would have found her.
In like the tents.
Yes. It's like
so sad.
Right there. And so, oh, man.
It really is. Like, if you smell something rotten, go look.
I know. And you would think, like, wouldn't they know that smell?
I know. With Linda Saley, he impersonated a police officer. He said he had a badge and kind of, showed the gun and got her trust, but he didn't say how he managed to convince her. But he leads her to his car and he beats her unconscious there, and he takes her to his garage and he does the same thing. He suspends her from the neck by that pulley and he strangles her to death. He tortures them by lifting them, and he does this.
Yeah.
And he assaults her body afterwards. He does this for days, but he said he didn't want to cut her breasts because they were too pink. And so instead he decided, because she had weird burns on her, he said that he had hooked her up to jumper cables after she was dead to try to electrocute her body. I just wanted to see if she would jump around. It didn't work.
Oh my God.
Yep. Ew. He ties her body up in the same fashion, ties her to a car transmission, and he dumps her into the river. So on June 4th, all of this is happening really fast. Back to back. And they are not messing around back then. So from May 25th and 26th, when he's finally caught, to June 4th, he's 30. Jerome Brudos is arraigned and charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. Okay. He pleads not guilty by reason of insanity. Of course he does. And the very same day, psychologists test him at an average to actually above average IQ and cognitive ability. So he's fine. He's sane. They think basically he's just been through so much of abuse that he's acting out fantasies of wanting to kill his mom. Okay. It's like a, psycho thing. So he's also diagnosed with antisocial personality behavior, and they talk about his sadism and still talk about schizophrenia. But June 27th, Jerry goes to court, and instead of 4 counts, it goes to 3 because Linda's Slauson's body was never recovered. Oh, so they can't. The pictures don't matter.
The foot's not gonna.
It didn't matter.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So the same day, he decided to plead guilty instead, and he was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences with the possibility of parole, which is really weird.
That is weird.
And now, in a twist, a neighbor implicates Darcy.
What? Like she had something to do with it?
They said that they saw her and him moving a body in the evening. She's arraigned on August 7th and charged with aiding and abetting in the murder of Karen, because that's when the timeline fit.
Oh, okay.
So She testifies a month later, and she's found not guilty.
Oh,
it's
good.
just
I'm like,
nonsense.
because could you imagine if, like,
I think she was actually helping him move something like a rug.
okay.
So she's found not guilty. And the very next year, August 1970, Jerome is in prison.
Yeah.
1970, she finally divorces him. I don't know why it took so long. It took a year.
Yeah.
And bless her heart, she changes her name. She changes the kid's name.
Oh,
so it's no
wow.
longer
Okay,
Megan
so
and
it's-
Jason. It's who knows. And she moves. They have a no contact. Jerome is not allowed to try to talk to his children. So good for her.
Yeah.
He tries to appeal all the way up until 1977, but it constantly falls through. His reasoning for appeals, the pictures of the dead girls weren't the ones I killed.
What?
Those are other bodies. Those are other people. So,
Like,
what?
oh, I got it from a friend.
No, I have no
Like,
idea. His reasoning was ridiculous.
It always is. I saw the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like-
So they don't grant his appeals, and
Yeah.
he's allowed no more. We're moving all the way to 95. There's nothing going on. He has a hard time in prison. Who would have thought?
Yeah,
you
good.
know? Yep, he has quite a hard time. And the craziest part is he has stacks and stacks of women's shoe catalogs in his prison cell.
Ew, you would think that would be like the one thing. Like, I'm sorry,
That's
you
your
can't
thing. You
have
can't have that. There are rules like that now, I think.
Yeah.
But not back then,
the
but he had
90s?
been doing it. Yeah. He would write to these catalog companies and tell them the truth. He told them,
What?
I'm in prison and I need these for pornography. And they felt bad.
Oh,
And
Ew, I'm
they would
sorry.
send, I know, can you believe that?
That's
So he goes up for parole again. And it is 1995.
okay.
The parole board tells Brudos, which I think this had never been done in history, he is literally banned from ever being paroled.
Good.
They're like, no matter
You've got
what you
3
do,
life sentences. Isn't he like
But
in his 70s? now
they're
or something?
letting
Or
him.
60s?
They let him keep coming up. Like, you can still come talk to
Oh,
us
just
every
come
2
talk
years,
to,
but
like-
it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So how did that work out? I don't know why they even bothered. Maybe so that he could still talk. But
Why waste the time?
exactly.
It's ridiculous.
August 20th, 2005.
Mhm.
He's in front of the parole board again. For what point? And during these meetings, they ask the criminals, do you feel sorry? Are you remorseful? Have you changed? What have you learned? Why did you do it? It's to just gauge if they care,
Mm-hmm.
And he tells them that this parole hearing isn't the place to talk about it because it's just going to get out. And he doesn't want to talk about it anymore. He wants to leave in the past. He knows he's not going to get out. I'm not going to tell you what you want. So they leave it at that. And it is so crazy to me because in his time in prison, he managed to get an Associates of Science degree, a bachelor's in counseling.
What? I'm sorry. I don't want some psycho person.
And at this point in 2005, he was getting his master's in counseling as well.
What?
He was working on it. Yeah. And
I'm sorry, but
I know.
like,
why? You're there forever. I don't know.
You are never going to use
I
a
know.
degree.
I never understood that either.
Maybe
So-
to boost his like ego, like
Yeah.
I've got a master's and I've got,
Luckily, in prison, he suffered pretty good. He
Mhm.
ended up getting colon cancer,
Mm.
and he had only 1 year of recovery from colon cancer. And in March 28th, he thankfully died of
Okay.
liver cancer.
Oh, okay.
And he had the record as the longest incarcerated person in Oregon history.
Wow.
Now, he didn't give a lot of interviews. He didn't
Uh-huh.
want to talk about it. He didn't care. So there's really not a lot. But in
Mhm.
a couple he gave, the first one, when he really was in depth after his confessions, Marion County Detective Jim Burns asked him if he felt remorse for those women at all. And Jerry looked at a piece of paper on the desk. He picked it up, he crumpled it, and he threw it on the floor. And he said, and I quote, "I care about those girls as much as I care about that piece of wadded up paper."
Oh, he's a monster.
In another interview he did that was very short with it's a daytime interviewer named Lars Larson. He asked him why he did it, and the only response that Jerome Brudos gave, he laughed, he smiled, and he said it was a slow Saturday night.
Oh my God.
And that is that. And it's so gross and sad.
Whoa.
And it is a really unfortunate.
Yeah, my tummy hurts.
It's
I'm like,
gross and sad.
It really is. Wow. And I mean, you feel bad for the child that, you know, it's that nature versus nurture. It's
for sure.
It's his childhood sucked. There's no denying that. But, you know, and maybe it did create the person that he became. But at the same time, I just think like that is a little extreme. There's a lot of people that can have a really, you know, shitty childhood.
Oh, yeah. And they don't turn into that.
Exactly. So it's like,
or even a tiny version of that. They don't come out with aggression or rage. It tends to be the opposite.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to fight. I don't want to do anything.
Exactly.
I'm just not going to. I'm going to completely retreat. Yeah.
Wow.
It's very hard. I'm sure his parents did not help, but he made choices. And even as a 16, 17-year-old brain, it's like, you're going to steal a bra or panty. That's gross because you're going to be a little dirty pervert. But when we're talking peeping and stealing and assaulting as a 17, you know that. Come on. That's not the same as like, oh, I'm going to jump off this bridge in the water and be dumb. That's completely a choice to harm someone. His impulses
were a little different.
Wanted to. He made a plan and he did it.
Wow. Yeah.
As a child.
It was premeditated, that attack on her. Wow. Oh, my gosh. Well. Whew, that was a lot. That was intense.
If someone tells you to stay out of the room no matter what, leave.
Yeah. Exactly.
If you're not allowed in your own home.
Exactly. If Jack was like, you can't come in the garage ever again.
Ever.
I'd be like, this is my house too. I'm going to my garage. You know, wow. Because we don't have, you know, basements in California. Right. I mean, there are some, I think, but
not that many. That'd be the first place to get crushed in an earthquake. That's where it caves in.
So, well,
I'm so sweaty.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that was like stressful.
Yeah, and that was a lot. I was holding my breath a lot, and I think like I said, my stomach hurts. That was very intense. But anyways, with that, stay crafty.
Not crimey.
Bye.